Welcome into the Hyundai Studios here for STO Fantasy Playbook. I'm Will Ewick, joined alongside Ryan Cavanaugh. Today we're going to go back to the usual routine of the start, sits, the injury impact, and also the fantasy marketplace. We begin with stardom, sit-em, and somebody that's coming back. He's got one game under his belt from injury. Beanie Wells for you. You think he's a good play?
Yeah, he took 7 weeks off, and they put him right to work. 17 carries, only 48 yards, but he got in the end zone twice. Through his career, he's always a guy who's been able to find the end zone. He says he's still working on getting his football legs back. He's going to continue to get that workload and look for his production to increase. Trent Richardson's my second guy. He's had over 100 yards of total offense in the last 4 weeks. He's playing the Raiders. They give up the third most fantasy points to running backs. Last week, the law firm had 129 rushing and a touchdown. Throw in Colt McCoy as your quarterback, and Trent Richardson's a guy you got to have in your lineup.
Got a couple running backs. I have a couple of wide receivers, and one of them also coming back from injury, Pierre Garçon, his first game back this past week on Thanksgiving. And Garçon looked to kind of pick up right where he left off in week 1. 5 receptions, 93 yards, and a touchdown. I think Robert Griffin III likes him. He likes his speed. And he played on Thursday. He doesn't play again until Monday, so he gets a nice extra week and a half there to rest. I think he'll be a good play this coming week. The next one, Jarius Wright. Wright's totaled 10 catches for 114 yards and a touchdown since Harvin has been sidelined with that ankle injury. Wide receivers average 24.4 fantasy points per week against Green Bay, which they play. You also have a possibility of Kyle Rudolph sitting. I think if Harvin and Rudolph sit, great play is Jarius Wright. We move on to our sits now, and again, Steven Jackson, someone for you that we've talked about back and forth, and he keeps kind of bobbing. What do you expect this week?
I don't expect him to have 134 yards rushing like he did last week. And I know owners of Steven Jackson, they want him to relive the glory days. It's not going to happen. And a big reason is he's playing the 49ers, who are the 4th in the league in rush defense. They only allow 91 yards per game. Darrell Richardson's going to get some carries, and that's going to cut into those yards. My second guy, Torrey Smith, who's coming off a big week himself. 144 yards receiving on 7 catches against the Chargers last week. He's also playing against the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Steelers are first in the league against the pass, and the last time, less than 1 month ago, when Torrey Smith played them, only 1 catch for 7 yards. I keep him on my bench.
Yeah, that sounds like a good play there, Ryan. And I have another one of these running backs that we talk about that does bob back and forth. Michael Turner. I know a lot of his owners don't know what to expect on a weekly basis, just like Steven Jackson. I sit him this week. And you say it's a juicy matchup. It's the New Orleans Saints. I sit him anyway because the last time he played the Saints in Week 10, rushed for 13 times for 15 yards. Worst game of the season. He's only averaging 3.4 yards per carry in his last 5 games against the Saints. You have Jacquizz Rodgers kind of pulling away with more of these carries, more of these looks. He's also catching the ball in the backfield, which the Falcons like and which you can do against the Saints. I expect more of Rodgers, less of Turner. My other one, Selleck, really not much of a factor the past couple of games. He hauled in just 15 receptions for 139 yards over his last 4 games. Held out of the end zone. I think with this new quarterback in Foles, it's kind of an offense that's struggling right now, and I think there are better options out there other than Brent Selleck. We move on to the injury impact for this week, and instead of an injury, it's someone coming back from injury, and that's Greg Jennings. A lot of people have stepped up. They picked up Randall Cobb. Jordy Nelson has improved. What do you expect Jennings to do if he does get back and suit up this week?
I don't anticipate him having a monster week. I don't even know if I would start him if I'm a fantasy guy, and that's because of the emergence of Randall Cobb, James Jones getting involved, and Jordy Nelson's been quiet all year, and he's kind of coming to his own. I don't expect Rodgers to immediately make Greg Jennings his go-to guy. They've had a system in place for all those weeks that Jennings was out, and I expect him to continue doing what he's been so successful doing.
It'll certainly be an interesting storyline to watch. We move on to our fantasy marketplace. Guys you can buy low, sell high. And there's not much buying and selling right now because the trade deadline has passed, but you can still drop some of these guys and maybe try to find some of these waiver pickups. Who do you like this week?
Well, for my stock up, it's Eli Manning, and that's more so keep an eye on him and consider using him in the playoffs. He's a top-tier quarterback, as everybody knows, but he's had a rough stretch. Last week, he exploded off the bye, and he has the Washington Redskins and the New Orleans Saints and those pivotal get in or get out of the playoff weeks for you. I think Eli Manning's a guy that you want to hang on to and get him in your lineup. And the Detroit Lions, not a team you want to pick up on waivers, and if you have them, get rid of them. They've got their off-the-field issues. Sue can't stay out of the newspapers, and I just don't see them being productive and producing as a defense. going forward.
And there's a lot of other defenses out there that weren't really looked upon early on that are playing very well right now that you could pick up and replace the Lions if that was your go-to. My stock up, Jacquizz Rodgers, I mentioned him earlier. Michael Turner really struggling right now. The Falcons like to get this guy involved. He's shifty, he's quick, rushed 10 times for 49 yards and scored a touchdown on the ground, which was the first of his season last week against Tampa Bay. Kind of a juicy matchup coming up against the New Orleans Saints. You expect them to keep pace. Probably some dump-offs in his way, especially a PPR. Kind of an interesting sleeper pickup here. My stock down, the Pittsburgh Steelers running back, the whole backfield, Ryan, I don't like any of them. And the reason is because there are so many. You got 4 guys kind of splitting time right now. They're all having fumbling issues, which we saw firsthand here in Cleveland. I really avoid this if I can because the Steelers are a mess right now. You don't know if Roethlisberger's coming back. With Batch, no one's respecting the pass. I stay away. I avoid this backfield altogether.
I think that's a pretty good decision. And if Roethlisberger's not back, I avoid the entire Steeler offense.
Yeah, maybe the defense, too, if they're on the field so much. That's all the time we have for STO Fantasy Playbook. Thanks for clicking in. Make sure you check back each week and read our columns online at stohd.com in the Fantasy tab at the top of the page. For Ryan Kavanaugh, I'm Will Ewick reminding you it's your fantasy. We just happen to be in it.